Look at that yellow star thistle. I mean, what phase would you say it's in right now? I mean, it looks all but dead while still flowering. You might be tempted to say that that's a separate plant intertwined, but nope, that's the same plant. And yes, it still hurts. Look at the bowl thistle on December 10th, 2022. Again, the only thing semi-attractive is the native plant that the goats didn't quite finish murdering. These bones look a little bit cleaner than last time. I gotta do better about identifying, because this is only interesting if it's not wildlife. I guess that's a deer, but with all the livestock here and with the livestock companies leaving behind their dead animals, you have to at least take into consideration the possibility of it being livestock being drug away. Here's my lemonade berry. It's not exactly thriving, it's not exploding, but it is still alive. So this is a little bit different than the goat poop. It's slightly smaller. So, has this been getting grazed on a little bit? Maybe. If and when the goats come through here, I hate to see what's going to happen to this. Look at the failure across the board for the goats to reduce the invasive plant problem. December 10th is pretty darn early in the season, and look at the height of the next generation of fire fuel already. No, and no is the answer to your question whether any of this is native grass. Absolutely not. And here's the last set of non-native grass next to the new set. See, these are slender oats here. God, look at all that. Bowl thistle here laying on the ground. For those of you who ever wonder about the advantages of vegetation and roots versus bare soil, this is it. There's a reason I'm walking here, because if I stepped there, I would go flat on my ass. So all this effort to remove vegetation from hillsides has some seriously negative effects. Let's take a look at this yellow monkey flower. Got some green on the stems. You see where I pulled the fire fuel up. It's actually maintaining that effect for a fairly long time. And yes, of course, the next generation will try to come back, but man, that's a world of difference compared to that and all that still being on it. And I'm happy to see the wavy leaf soap plant doing well. Note to self, yes, there's the next generation already here, but I'm just a little amazed at this view. I mean, that is a lot. That is a lot of the old fire fuel, tall and thick, left behind. But it's laying down. And will it eventually return to the soil. The next observation is you have that, which is, it's kind of dark and yet yellowish. But then you have the dark, where nothing lives. Like even the invasives are having a hard time. So I guess that's what we call progress. If it was progress, we'd see natives in there. And you can see this darkness on the far hills too. That's just a complete absence of life. Let's see if I can make it all the way down here without falling. I still see the goat water tank in approximately the same area as last time. They just must be ravaging the shit out of that hill, which would explain the black dead area. But it's worth having a internal monologue about why that's tall right there, because some people might argue, well, there you go, that's exactly why you have to bring the goats in. I don't know. If the goats leave that section again, and quite frankly, I hope they do, because if they don't, they're gonna mess up all that coyote brush. But if they do, I'll go through there and pull those really tall annuals up by hand and be much more effective than the 600 goats. Be interesting to find out what the coloration is here, if that's lichen or what's growing, what kind of plant life is trying to grow where those people poisoned the soil. Be an interesting study to see how using herbicide actually promotes other types of vegetation to try and survive. December 10th, I have been seeing some California poppies as I hike, responding to the rain. And it's bittersweet. I love to see the native plants, but the goats are moving from that way this way, which means the goats are on their way here and are going to make this hillside even more barren than it already is, more erosive than it already is, and you can kiss these goodbye. I've tested firsthand that the goats eat the poppies. Here's my note of reference. We got this tree, straight line to that tree. See that one? And then these trees. Let's just come back and check how the poppies look in this corridor after the goat grazing. Man, how long is it gonna be? I mean, the goats are here grazing for so long. It's almost like they're resident animals at this point. If you think that isn't displacing the natives, then you're not thinking on an ecological level, because it's definitely got to be disturbing for resident animals to have 600 newcomers. Fair amount of poppies. For anyone wanting to give the goats credit for the poppies, no. No. The poppies have always been here, and poppies are tough, so tough. You see poppies growing in all kinds of locations where you won't find other plants growing. So the nicest thing you'd say is that the poppies are surviving the goats. And when I say surviving, I mean the next generation tries to come back, but once these poppies reach a halfway decent size, well, the goats are going to be here to gobble them up. This does admittedly look like goat poop, but there's one and not any more. That's just not the way goats poop, especially not 600 of them. So there's no way in hell they've been here. The goats are out at these locations working. The owners are getting paid so many months of the year that they kind of don't have any expenses. Like, the goats basically don't have a home location to return to because they're out grazing California year-round, and certainly is going to reduce your food costs because they're out eating California year-round. My concerns about the barrenness of the hill get more dramatic as we get up higher, as we get closer to the peak. And this is an area where the goats pass through more often from spot to spot. So this area just gets, trampled into nothing, with the exception of pieces of the annual invasives that they failed to get rid of. What you're looking at here are those horizontal paths. These are goat trails, except that after X number of months times 600 animals, it just turns into one big barren trail instead of multiple horizontal trails. There we go. There's deer poop instead of goat poop. A little more oblong. Jeez, I hope that's deer poop. I gotta work on my poop identification, but it was not goat poop, I'll tell you that much. That's really sad. So for those of you just now tuning in to my documentation of this area, I'm not just talking out of my butt here. This is about 4 years in and watching this place steadily get worse. So stay tuned. I'll post all that evidence in time. Oh my God. Look what's over the hill. See the darkness? Those goats are slowly turning that into this. And you're all gullible enough to think that that's a good thing. I'm gonna go home, charge the phone, get the dogs. We'll come back out and take a closer look at this damage. You can see the line there. God, look at how bad that is. They grazed the riparian side before they grazed the open field. I'm on a human walking trail now. The reason I think it's worth pointing out is that, this is intentionally void of vegetation, and this is what the rest of the hill is turning into. So is that what our plan is? We want the entire hill to look like this. That's where we're going. Case in point, although there are fewer poppies on this side, there's ones over there. There are a few over here, so I'm just documenting. Got a quick bit of sunshine. This is December 10th, 2022, and a few thoughts as I look over this spot that I usually take footage of. The dead zones, the bare soil zones, are actually pretty well covered thanks to the length of the annual fire fuel that the goats supposedly are here to get rid of. A few more thoughts on that. Obviously they didn't get rid of it, but it seems as though even after it turns yellow and one might presume it's dead, it continues to grow. This is long stuff that is now, just from age and wind and rain, starting to lay down, and that's what is covering the dark soil. So it's actually the presence of a large quantity of what the goats were supposed to get rid of that is covering the goat damage. This is actually pretty dramatic because you see the next generation coming up through extremely long examples of the old generation. Unbelievable. The sun comes out for a minute and I hear the leaf blowers. I swear humans don't know how to exist without leaf blowers anymore. I gotta look deeper into how long this annual fire fuel grows even after one thinks it's no longer growing. When does the annual life cycle actually end? I would originally have thought that meant that it ends once it sets and goes yellow and looks dead and ready to burn, but it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Makes you wonder if it's accurate to say it ends its life cycle after a year. It's a quick shot of this monkey flower over here because the goats are coming around the hill. We'll see what kind of damage they cause if they come through here. Look at them. It's an entire skyline of them. Some of the only natives remaining are in this spot next to the road where they haven't grazed the goats. There's the goat fence border, and there are the goats. Keep a close eye on this because I want to know if the goats actually devour these things from top to bottom. I don't understand what's happening with this area being fenced off while this area over here has the goats, but it's not up to me to understand that. All that remains of the native brush. Look at all of these, just stripped bare and destroyed as I approach the abandoned. I'm praying this goat is dead because of my helplessness to do anything for it if it's not dead. I tried last year and was told that I was up Schitt's Creek looking for mercy for these animals. Show me the goats, supervisor. Come back tomorrow. This guy will probably be picked by the coyotes. Jesus Christ, did his eye move? Please don't be alive. This place smells like actual shit. It just reeks of shit. This is a wasteland filled with goat poop and death. The amount of poop is absurd. And they litter as well. Look what they did to the native habitat. Look how rough and violent they are. They just break shit. They don't even eat everything, they just break things. They don't act like wildlife in any way, shape, or form. People pretend that grazing is a suitable alternative to wildlife grazing. This is not a wildlife graze. This looks like a storm came through. This is all just flattened good pieces of native brush eaten. Just a blanket of shit. You know how sensitive wildlife are. Why do you think they're always marking and pissing and pooping and marking territory? Well, now this entire hill just smells like goat shit and is covered in goat shit and has been laid waste. Why even let them down here? They didn't even get rid of what you supposedly put them down here for. God, look at this. I can see goat fence left behind. Let's go take a closer look. I can't emphasize enough how absurd this is. This is just like senseless destruction. And it's destruction of the plants that they were supposed to leave behind, to leave alone. It's the same story all the way through here. And there's the litter. I find this all over California where they've done goat grazing and just leaving this stuff behind. Again, I mean, I guess officially I should give them until they're all officially gone before I say this is litter, but they've moved all the way over to there. This is just like a section forgotten about. And by the way, how long have I been filming? How many times have you seen an active supervisor? So now I'm crawling out of this murdered habitat. Well, that's depressing enough for one day, huh? Leaving. Still no sign of a goat herder or supervisor or whatever you want to call it. This is what that brush should look like. And what kind of trash have they added to Douche Mountain? Oh, it's just discolored. What are those, palm fronds? So they just keep adding more of their rubbish to this pile of growing fire fuel over here. While we wreak havoc on the habitat because of our fear of fire fuel. This is just absurd. That is a big mountain of their discarded wood and other trash. Another unspoken rule of being a rich member in the community. Do whatever the hell you want to do.